A forest is a typical setting for a horror story, one that is overused and maybe has lost its scare factor. I used to be a firm believer in this. However, after this traumatic experience, my perspective on cliché horror settings has changed, as no matter the area, any scenario can take a turn for the worse. I remember it was a dark November night. The air was cold and bitter, yet strangely soothing, and the atmosphere was relaxing. All my friends and I decided to go camping, in preparation for a trip we had next month with our school. There's a group of around 4 of us. We were all deeply excited, not to mention every intention we had of getting drunk. It's reckless, I know, being virtually defenseless in a situation which could easily result in my demise, but it's the way I chose, and the only way I know. The evening went by without incident, much to the pleasure of my friends, who weren't exactly keen or jumping at the idea of spending the weekend in their cold, unforgiving forest. We just pitched the tents, at maybe 8 PM. I thought it was way too early, but the sky said otherwise. It was as pitch black as coal, with light having no chance at all of penetrating it and creating some sense of guidance for wandering travellers such as ourselves. Although it was black, every so often the stars shone through to break the sea. It was quite picturesque actually. There's something about the serenity and peace of a quiet night that is like ecstasy for the soul. However, unbeknownst to us, our night would turn into a film set. We were quietly watching the stars, lying on our backs on the ground. My best friend and I talking about the usual stuff on one side, and my other mate and his girlfriend on the other. We were all quite tired, and I drank a couple of beers, which were just starting to set in, coupled with my overwhelming tiredness. Because of this, I knew sleep was imminent, but I had to try and stay awake, as all of my other friends were the polar opposite, so upbeat and ready for anything. I stated how I felt to my friends, and surprisingly they understood. So I decided to get ready for bed, but not before I had to go and get more firewood. I threw myself into the deep darkness of the forest, aimlessly flailing my arms around to get my bearings of where I was going. Finding sticks wasn't hard, but moving from area to area was very difficult. I was moving slightly cautiously, but I must have got careless, as the next time my hand touched something, it was soft and furry. However, soft isn't really the word to describe it. It was furry, sure. It was the kind of fur which is rough when you brush your hand along, and the type that was obviously not very well kept. My reflexes kicked in, and I swiftly retracted my hand from the entity. I put my hands into my pockets while thinking about what just happened, when I felt my phone was inside. I was so tired I didn't even realise what I had or hadn't taken with me. I turned on the flashlight and put it at a 45-degree angle, and what I saw eliminated every sense of exhaustion that I had, and replaced it with the motivation to do anything to save my life. My light illuminated this thing. I was frozen with fear, as 1,000,000 thoughts raced through my head, not corresponding with any movement, however. It had a demonic look upon its face, red, piercing eyes with a head slightly tilted, as if it was examining me. Its mouth was wide open, which showed teeth formed in a smile. I screamed and ran back to the campsite, only to find that my best friend wasn't there. To be honest, I'm not even sure how I managed to retrace my steps. My phone was now lost, as I dropped out of pure fear. I frantically searched around the perimeter and area. Nothing. I started to panic, while my other friends reassured me it would all be okay. I nodded, but then heard this familiar sound of twigs snapping, slowly. That creature was coming for us. It cornered us. We were backed up against a tree, and it reached out one bony and strong arm and ripped its face off, only to reveal my best friend. I was so relieved, but still so pissed he would do something like that. We all decided to leave after that scare. No one was really in the mood for camping anymore. We packed up our stuff and slowly trundled to where we thought the exit was, only barely being able to make out the ground in front of us. However, we all came to an abrupt stop, where my best friend, who was leading us, suddenly said in a timid voice, "Guys, what's this furry thing blocking our path?" I told him to stop playing with us, and he turned around and looked me dead in the eyes. Of which, the same creature I'd met the first time was looking back at us, its eyes snapping the darkness in half. We ran in the opposite direction, as fast as we could.